Welcome back, everybody, to another exciting episode of Pittsburgh Pirates franchise here on MLB The Show 25. I am so excited to debut this episode here. It is only the third in this young franchise for me, but it might be one of my favorites. As promised last time, as teased before that, we will be debuting the entire conversation that I have with Donnie Baseball. That's right, everybody. My brother-in-law, my friend, and all kinds of baseball knowledge repository guru, if that sentence makes sense. He knows a lot about baseball. He knows a lot about the Pirates, and I can only hope that I can take some of his guidance and knowledge in the proper direction to turn this franchise around and get us back going where we need to be. So, the entire conversation will be played in the middle of this episode, and then towards the very end, I will hop back in to finish play calling the last of the game. So, without further ado, here it is, the conversation with Donnie Baseball, my friend. Take it away. Welcome back, everybody, to a very special edition of MLB The Show 25 here with the Pirates franchise. I am Gladys the Baker, and as promised, I have a very special guest on with me today to help me out and guide me in the right direction, hopefully. Good friend of mine, brother-in-law of mine as well, and baseball knowledge extraordinaire. It is Donnie Baseball. Welcome to the channel. So happy to have you here, and thank you so much for the time and for your effort, and we will get into all of the details later. But thank you. Go ahead and say hello to the people.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Thank you so much, Baker, for having me on today.
Absolutely. Happy to have you, and it's something of a first for me as well. I haven't featured guests on here as well, but I'm not what I would, quote unquote, call a YouTuber per se. This is a side hobby, but I enjoy it. Love the baseball content, and getting into the Rays series with my franchise last year was really, really awesome for me, and looking forward to having a fantastic run here with the Pirates. And in order to do that, I need you to hit me with some knowledge. And so I've got a series of questions lined up for you. You ready?
Absolutely.
All right. Do you want to give any kind of context or background into first where we're starting this discussion from? So I had teased having the guest on, and I said that you've got a ton of baseball knowledge and you've got some Pirates knowledge. Do you want to give a brief summary of kind of where that comes from, where the interest in the Pirates come from in the first place, and why are you a resource for me to go to? You know what I mean? Like, can you give any flavor for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I absolutely just love horrendous sports teams. Ironically, I feel like it's kind of in our DNA growing up here in Tampa. The Rays haven't always been as good as they have been within the past decade, So Pirates are like on my radar because I feel like in the very bare bones of the franchise, it has so much potential, and ownership just hasn't necessarily hit the nail on the head for them, honestly. So, I do think that, watching the Pirates, it's very frustrating for me because I think they can be a fantastic team, but they are not.
I feel like that's a fair assessment, and laughably, I fully agree, as in, it's kind of encoded into us, right? The underdog sensation is something that is universally appealing. There's so many reasons to root for a struggling team or a bad team. And, there's people that only root for good teams. You got the bandwagon, the fair weather fans, as we refer to them. It's easy to root for a team that wins all the time. And I would say it's easy to be a Yankees fan. It's easy to be a Dodgers fan. Easier than ever now, as they've assembled what could possibly be the greatest team since, the Yankees in the 20s. It's easy to be a fan of a team and of an organization for a year or two if they're really good. But the struggling teams, the down and out dogs, the guys that sometimes there has been, sometimes there never has been. You got plenty of teams that have never won a World Series, some that only have one or two pennant wins. There's plenty of teams to root for, and I fully agree with the assessment. The Pirates could be more, and that's the goal of a rebuild for me, to take over. It's not going to be, I don't think, I've referred to it several times as a potential fire sale. I don't think that's the direction I'm going to go. We'll get into further details on that type of discussion in a moment. But yeah, I think that rooting for the underdog is always more fun because the thrill of the win when you finally get there means so much more. You know, when you struggle for something and you finally attain it, that's a human experience that everybody can feel. That's a sense of triumph that's not possible for a team that is a perennial winner. And so I fully agree. I love the underdog stories. I love the underdog situations and the comeback kids. You know, all those type of monikers are fantastic.
Absolutely. The Yinzers of the Pittsburgh area haven't experienced a postseason in about a decade, and about the last time that they even made it to the playoffs, I believe they were in the wild card. So it wasn't even like they were juggernauts of the division. So we got to get there.
We got to get there, and the way that we do that, the best way to begin is by beginning. So let's go ahead and roll into the very first question. On this MLB roster, as I said, I don't think, be doing a fire sale. And so then the next question immediately is, okay, well, who is staying? Who is going to be untouchable on the MLB level? And that's my question to you. Who is untradeable? Who is a guy, or if you wanted to give any number of guys, who are people that should stay with the organization through thick and thin as I do this rebuild?
So I do have a list of guys that I do think are absolutely untradeable. Well, I'll kind of go with similar positions, but first off, Paul Skeens, I mean, he's the best pitcher, arguably in all of MLB. There's absolutely no way that you can trade him. If you do, honestly, it better be like a LA Dodgers style deal where you get, 7 of the best guys for him. Yeah. Like he is the man. Behind him, I would say Jared Jones is also a talent that you just cannot trade. He's fairly young, roughly about the same age as Skeens too. Definitely a number 2 in the rotation. A prospect I think you can't trade, Bubba Chandler, is coming up through their pipeline. Looks phenomenal. I think he's going to be... Skeens, Jones, and Chandler are going to be a 3-headed monster that MLB is going to be forced to reckon with in a year or two. Behind them, I think Mitch Keller is a guy that I think could stay on the team for a couple of years. I do believe highly in Mitch Keller. One of the relief pitchers that I do like, and this is within the real-life aspect of it, Joey Wentz. He's like 6'5", a big left-hander, and coming out of the pen, that sounds fantastic. That's a very intimidating pitcher, Joey Bart can stay on the team a couple years. He's
most surprised by that one, I would say.
I think he's a very reliable catcher. And this would be within, at least 1 or 2 years of keeping Joey Bart. I like Joey Bart a lot. Key Bryant Hayes, I think, is a cornerstone piece that needs to stay at least a couple of years. And then for outfield, this is one of the older guys in the Pirates roster, but I like him as a veteran presence on the team. Brian Reynolds, honestly.
Okay, I can see that.
And then also in the outfield, which I don't think that he should be in the outfield, and it might come to a surprise to a lot of people, but I think that you should stick O'Neal Cruz back into the infield.
Okay, in the infield at shortstop, that would be.
At shortstop, yep, where he originally played coming up into the Pirates organization.
That's a very interesting pull. I did not have shortstop on my radar for Cruz, and I was waiting to hear that name as well. I thought that was going to be one of the top 3 that you'd be like, no, you can't trade that guy. He's got to stay there. To see him further down on the list and a position swap proposed there, that's a hot take for me, but I love it. I love you bringing that to the table.
You know what? Honestly, last year, he just wasn't cutting it in the outfield. He had quite a bit of errors playing in the outfield, more than what he had in playing in shortstop. So I think the outfield experiment for O'Neal Cruz is over.
That's a fantastic take. I really, really love that. That's a clip right there. If I knew how to do that on YouTube, that would go viral. You heard it here first from Donnie Baseball. O'Neal Cruz is a shortstop. Truly a shortstop, I should say. Coming back to it. I love that take, though. That's great. And that's quite an extensive list here. So what you're saying is there is a core that we can build around this team. It doesn't, in fact, need a fire sale. It just needs some other pieces. Is that kind of the flavor of that answer, would you say? Is that fair?
Right. Basically what I'm saying is you have a rocket ship. All you need is rocket ship fuel.
Okay. Well, I like that. That's short and sweet and succinct and to the point. But that's quite a list to go off of. I agree with most of those. I think that the Joey Bart poll, like I said, for me is the most surprising one from there. Now, I don't have his stats in front of me, but my impression on Joey Bart is that he's a middling player. I could absolutely be putting my foot in my mouth here. But Joey Bart, for me, was not one of the guys that was on the radar that I felt it was anywhere near untouchable. So that one was both the most interesting and most surprising for me off of there, really, other than the Cruz flip.
Right, and honestly, I think Joey, maybe after a couple of years, I'm just saying for right now, I think he's the best viable option for your catcher position. Mm-hmm. Now, if you can go out and get, some kind of younger prospect, maybe that another team is trying to get rid of. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, I really do think that Joey Bart is viable for at least 2 years.
I could see that. He's only 28 right now, so, I mean, yeah, there's absolutely still plenty of time for a guy like Joey Bart. I don't have a better option in mind, but I just know that he was near the ceiling of his potential in the game ratings, that is. And so thinking of it like that, I'm like, okay, well, he's going to be good or maybe slightly above average. But there's definitely many players that have a higher ceiling than Joey Bart. But for now, he's absolutely fine. I mean, he's serviceable. As you described him for the next few years, it's pretty much spot on with my impression as well. But when I'm talking like untradeable, a guy that needs to stay with the team, that's why I feel like Joey Bart is a surprising answer for me. He's absolutely acceptable. He's within the right age range to stick around for a few years. But untradeable, that's why for me that's a hot take. That's all.
I'm just saying I wouldn't trade him at the deadline, is what I'm saying.
Okay. That's fair. I think I agree with that assessment as well. If I was going to get rid of him, I don't think that I would keep him for half the year, thereabouts, and wait until the deadline. I think if Joey Bart goes, it's earlier rather than later. But I don't think he'll be a deadline piece now.
Right.
All right, perfect. Let's go ahead and move on to number 2. Question number 2 is, what area of the Pirates organization do you feel is the biggest weakness? Where is our biggest hole at?
The biggest hole that you have is a crater. And that would be your relief pitchers. Your bullpen stinks. With a capital S. Please. Please go out and go get better relievers. This team cannot shut down a game. You're going to get into a lead. Your bullpen's going to come, and then you're going to blow 2 or 3 runs at least, and then you're going to get to your closer, David Bednar. My goodness. I'm sorry, but David Bednar's got to go. He is not a closer. He is not an MLB closer at all in any league, in any way, shape, or form. He's got to go.
So the opposite of the answer to the first question, who's untradeable? Who absolutely needs to go right away? It's David Bednar?
David Bednar, absolutely. That guy can't close a game to save his life. I'm pretty sure that... Brother, he can't hit an open barn door.
Bednar catching strays here today. I love it. That's great. So relief pitchers definitely feel like a hole for me as well. When I did the kind of roster preview breakdown video, it was short, so there wasn't, I did not rather choose to put an extensive amount of time into each position. It was supposed to just be a quick, brief overview video. But yeah, relievers was one of my immediate first impressions of, okay, all these guys seem to be getting older, but they've all hit their ceiling, or there's not a high ceiling to grow into, I think was how I phrased it. And I do feel like that off-the-cuff assessment is the perfect way to describe it. And so I fully agree with the answer here for number 2, that relief pitchers is the biggest hole that we have, but hilariously described as a crater by you. Yes.
Absolutely. It's such a liability to, like, just imagine being Paul Skeens and pitching into the 7th inning, having a shutout, and your bullpen guns and blows, a 3-run lead. It's heartbreaking, honestly.
Yeah, and it would be expected at this point because, in the game, the ratings are all pretty bad. And I scrolled through, actually, just now live during the recording. I'm looking at the reliever tab on the page here for the roster. And there is only one reliever that has a higher than C potential, and that is 32-year-old Tanner Rainey, who is a 56 overall right now with B potential, and he is in Double-A. Everybody else from the top to the bottom is either a C or a D potential for relievers.
That's not good.
That's pretty bad. Yeah. Crater indeed. All right. Well, let's get on to 3. Now that we've identified some guys that we need to stay, where we are weakest. Number 3, we're going to talk about Paul Skeens a little bit more. Obviously, the face of the franchise for as long as they can keep him. I don't expect Paul Skeens to be a Pirate for life in real life. Now, in the game, there is a possibility. I could offer him something like a 15-year deal and try to nab him forever. And so that's where my question lies. We have Skeens under team control until 2029, and then after that, he goes free agent. Do I ride that out during the course of this rebuild? Take the years that I have Skeens on somewhat of a budget signing, I would say. Obviously well below his actual market value right now. People would pay tens of millions of dollars a year to Paul Skeens to pitch anywhere. For now, we've got him under team control until 2029. So, do I offer that big contract? Is Skeens the franchise player in real life and the simulation, or do I ride that out and see how far Skeens can get us and then try to take value, and by that time hope that I've drafted or pulled, from other teams with trades, that I've built up enough of a core that Skeens as one person is less important than the quality of the team that I'm putting together, and try to get a trade for him before he's out of the Pittsburgh franchise. Which direction do you think I should go?
Want to know. So, in the perfect Donnie Baseball world, I would say you give him until 2027 to renew his contract. I think watching him for 2 full years, seeing what he can accomplish, if he's healthy, 2027 is the perfect time to go grab him for the rest of his career, only because it gives you time to build pieces around him, and then you also get to see, whether or not it is a good financial decision to lock up a player that's giving you 150 strikeouts per year.
Yeah, and I guess the follow-up to that would be, is there an advantage to waiting? Because with every year that goes by, with every increase in his attributes and every proof of performance that he's at such a high elite level at this young age, with every year that passes, he will get more expensive to offer that contract too. So is there an advantage? Why 27 specifically?
27, I feel like, is just a sweet spot in between writing his team-friendly contract and then giving up a big contract, right? Mm-hmm. So you get 2 years of not having to pay $30+ million to him, per year. So that's money that you can reinvest into free agency or guys that, might have a contract ending before he does, right? And then it's also arbitration. I see that you have it pulled up here. 27 is an arbitration year. You could technically argue whether or not you want to give him his big contract in that year, or you can settle. Mm-hmm. I would think that you would want to give him his big contract because, for one, you've already gone 2 years with a team-friendly one, and you could have built your, I don't want to say mega team because I don't think the Pirates have that much money, but you'll still have great pieces wrapped around him. You'll also have more of your guys that you have drafted getting ready to come up with him too. So I think overall the timing would be right because you have the money situation right. You can invest into the team, or if it's not going right, you also have the chance to trade him, which I know he's untradeable. I said it before. But in all worst case scenarios, 27, he's a megastar. You can drop him and potentially get a farm haul.
Okay. So is there a metric then that you could say, like, if by 27, we have, X amount of players that are, up and coming, or, we've drafted well, we picked up a couple free agency additions. Is there like a win total, or like at what point would it signal to you that the ship has turned direction enough to try to keep Paul Skeens? And then the converse of that is, like, how bad would it need to be for 27 to be like, Skeens has got to go? Like, we need more help than what we can reasonably get, even with Skeens. And so at 27, like, the team's not in a good enough shape to try to keep Skeens and make an actual run for this. It would be too expensive to keep him because the rest of the team is so far behind. Is there a certain point, like, where is that line for you? I know that's probably a really, really hard question to answer. We can keep it simply to, let's say, a certain amount of wins and losses, and let's assume that I've drafted well or not. So it's a two-parter, if we'll say it that way. If you'd like, I can try to answer that first on what I feel that answer would be for me, to give you a minute.
No, you're good.
Okay.
So the past 2 to 3 years, the Pirates haven't broken over 80 wins.
Okay.
Honestly, I feel like just if the Pirates within this year or 2026 make it to an even 500, so they win, oh gosh, what is it? 82? 81. If they make 81 wins this season or even next season, like, I think it's time to invest.
Okay. That means the train's
really
rolling, and it will pick up pieces to continue.
I think so, because within the past 2 years, they haven't won basically over 75 or 79 games. Like, it has been rising each year, but they need to make it over the 500 mark to even be considered like a playoff team.
Yeah, that's fair. I believe that. And so by 27, if we're above 500 and assuming that we've drafted pretty well, that means it's going right enough in the direction, and we've got enough pieces to get those amount of victories. That means that Skeens stays, right? So under 500 then by 27, even if we draft well, you think if we're not getting enough contribution to get over 500, that it's just not going well enough, and paying that contract to Skeens would not be worth it.
Yeah, if you're not over 500 by that mark, there's not enough wind in your sails to change the direction of the ship.
That's a great way to put it. Love that. Okay, cool. And this is why it's so perfect to have you on here, because that type of understanding of the Pirates and their trajectory to get here to this point is exactly, like, that's my crater, is knowledge of the Pirates. And you're helping me shovel the knowledge back in here, so I appreciate it. That's great. All right, lovely. We've got answers for 3 out of 5 so far. Number 4 is a kind of something that we've talked tangentially, I would say, to a couple of these points. But number 4 that I had written down was, is it a complete teardown situation and fire sale, or a slow rebuild? And I think that we've answered that pretty well, kind of on the skirts of asking it directly. We've answered it already, almost in the background of the other questions. So we know it's not going to be a complete fire sale, but here is the pointed question on that, is how aggressive should we be in going after trades and trying to sign free agency? The free agency market as we begin the franchise here with the Pirates is extremely slim. It's pretty much over 35. And most of these guys haven't played in a year, 2, 3, sometimes years. Regression has hit them from inactivity or age or both. It's kind of a seniors club in free agency now because everyone's already been signed as of the first of the year, or not first of the year, but as of opening day. Let me rephrase that. And so there's not much in free agency now, but of course, as the years progress, there certainly will be. There's going to be opportunities. And so the question is, how aggressive are we in trying to pick up these pieces versus a slow rebuild in-house by drafting prospects and developing them?
Right. So I feel like it should be a mix of both. Just kind of to elaborate a little bit more on that, I don't think it's an extreme fire sale, only because the roster overall, even between your farm system, AA, AAA, a lot of these guys are pretty up there in age and don't have a ton of value. So I don't know how easy it's going to be to even trade a lot of these guys to get prospects that are even going to be worth it. But at the same time, I don't the slow burn aspect of it. Like, I think at the very bare bones, I think that the club does have, at the major league level, has a pretty decent young core.
There's a number of guys that are very young. Yeah, like Skeens and Jared Jones in particular. Yeah.
At the bare bones of it, I feel like they're fairly young. There's guys that are mixed in there, like O'Neal Cruz already has been in the league for like 3 years. The same with Key Bryant Hayes. They both kind of came up in the same time. They're a little bit older in age, right? So I think Key Bryant right now is 28, if I remember correctly. And knowing you, that's a little bit higher in age, but I don't see it that way. I see an older player being like Brian Reynolds at 30. Like, Key Bryant Hayes, I think that he has at least another 4 years in the league.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And 28, to definitely clarify, 28 I don't feel is old, but I feel like by 28, if you haven't hit the ceiling of your potential, the chance of regression only increases massively with every year that goes by. And so for instance, on Key Bryant Hayes in particular, 28 years old right now in the game, he's rated as a 73 and he's got B potential. And so the basic math or metric that I use to judge is typical progression for a player in MLB The Show that I've seen. This is purely anecdotal. I've not seen this written anywhere or confirmed by Sony San Diego. But what I feel is typical progression for a player that has good development is 3 points per year to the overall. So if you go from a 73 to a 76 in 1 year, that is a good development year. So I feel like that's fair, right? And so if we apply that math to say, okay, if Key Bryant Hayes has B potential, he should be in the 80s for his overall, somewhere in there. Could be 81, could be 89, I'm not sure. But if he's at a 73 right now, we're talking 3 points a year. He would need 4 years of development to hit that ceiling. And so he hits his max, or basically his highest potential, when he's 32. And that is too old, I think, to be in your prime in baseball. And so that's what I mean when I say an older player. It's not necessarily that he's, knocking on the door of retirement or free agency and nobody picks him up. He's not old in that sense. But for 28 years old, he should be in his prime right now, ideally. But he's a little behind on that as far as the game's ratings that they've given him. And so with somebody like Brian Hayes, yes, 28, young. I mean, that's years younger than me. I don't play baseball, but for baseball ages, that's where you got to be at your best. And right now, Key Bryant Hayes, in the game at the very least, is not currently rated as the best that he can be. He needs more years of development, and the years that he's developing into are the regression years.
So, just to kind of add on to this about Key Bryant Hayes, by the time that his regression is starting, you should have had the time to be able to either draft or pick up someone from free agency. He would end up being like a veteran player, but I do think that for the most part, he's kind of the bare bones of the MLB squad, Honestly, I really don't think that it would be a fire sale. I think it would be actually too much work to be a fire sale. So I feel like the slow burn is the way to go.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's plenty of opportunity, over the next few years. I can pick up some guys in free agency that should be as well, swinging into their prime, or throwing, depending on what position we're talking about. But there's plenty of opportunity year to year with free agency. If we draft well, if there's guys that have a little bit of college experience, they may be more in the fast track type of development program for me in double or triple A. We're absolutely clear that the farm system is not in a great shape right now. But over the next 2 to 3 years or so, as we approach that kind of 2027 checkpoint in the franchise, that's definitely going to be one of the things that I'm looking at. And I think that saying Brian Hayes aging into that time frame, it's going to be a decision in a lot of ways. Yeah, I think 27, the more that I'm thinking about it, is a great pinpoint to say this is where we need to kind of check in and see how it's going. So that's going to be very interesting for a lot of reasons. Whether it's going to be a big Paul Skeens contract, whether we're still floundering off of bad draft picks, that would be the worst case scenario, that I try to keep the team together for the most part, add a little bit here and there, and just hope that I draft well. And if I don't by 27, then this whole thing could come off the rails. And that could be very dangerous. So I think slow rebuild is definitely the way that I'm going to go. I fully agree with the assessment as well. A fire sale would be way too much for them. And I don't really think that they need it. Like you said, it's just kind of some additions, here and there. Obviously, they believe in some of these young stars. I just, with the limited budget, the question of who to sign, when to sign, and how to sign, all of those things are the complex questions that need complex answers, and we'll figure them out kind of slowly as we go. So we'll move on to the fifth and final question that I have for you. Knowing all of, as much as we can about the strengths and weaknesses, we've got star players that we will most likely not touch, try to keep around forever. We've got other guys that, we could possibly get rid of. We're going to have free agency pickups. We're going to have draft development prospects and all that. But as far as the trades go, if there's going to be trades, and there certainly will be, is there somebody or anybody, or even if it's just not even narrowed down to a person, but is there a position, something that I should seek to grab from a trade? What would be beneficial to try to trade for? And if you have anybody in mind, is there anything like that you could supply?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the most obvious thing is go out and get you some better relievers, or at least relievers that can be more reliable than the guys that you have in the pen currently. Just off the cuff, guys that I think would be obtainable that wouldn't cost you a whole lot. Hunter Harvey from the Kansas City Royals. I have a very big circle around his name and a couple underlines. I think he's a guy that could be very reliable in the pen. I also think that you can probably easily get him from getting rid of one of your veteran players, which would be Tommy Pham. I think that Kansas City wouldn't mind having a veteran presence in the clubhouse at left field that he is, and I think Hunter Harvey would be easy to get through them. And if not Hunter Harvey, Garrett Clevenger from the Tampa Bay Rays, I think, is also a very viable arm out of the pen.
Yeah, I've got experience with actually both of those guys here in franchises that either I've done off stream or off recordings, rather, privately in my franchises that I play. And then Panther and I, in our Two Idiots franchise, we've had direct experience with Hunter Harvey as well, and with Clevenger. So there's a lot of cross-pollination for those two in franchises that I've been a part of. And in each one, I think they've been pretty successful for me as well. So delightfully hearing those names. That's definitely great. And I think, yes, trading for relievers is probably the clearest answer that we could possibly give. We definitely need relievers, whether it's through trades, through free agency, or whatever. I definitely, man, relievers so tough here in Pittsburgh. We just don't really have it. I will say the pipeline for starting pitchers looks pretty good, but relievers and closers is something that Pittsburgh seems to traditionally struggle with. So we're on the same page there, absolutely. And I think, yeah, either Hunter Harvey or Derek Clevenger would both be great additions for me to get. I like the Tommy Pham call as well. That's definitely a piece that I would be looking at to trade if I'm not mistaken, he's 37 right now. And so that is well beyond traditional playing time for somebody out in the field. So the clock not only has been ticking for somebody like Tommy Pham, but it's also stopped ticking, and it just needs new batteries. Unfortunately, people don't work like that.
Oh man, that's hilarious. Also, if I might add, so if you look at both of those suggestions, I have them in the AL. I do think there's certain teams that you should look at just as a team in whole for the relief pitchers. So thinking of teams that are actually really bad, like even worse than what the Pirates are. There's a couple of guys that are pretty good on the Angels. The White Sox can even have some diamonds in the rough. Thinking of teams like that, but honestly, I suggested those couple of guys only because, I don't even personally, I don't want to trade within the division, only because you're going to have to face your division rivals for 10 to 15 series a year. And I wouldn't want to, what are the chances that Tommy Pham has an incredible season for, I don't know, he goes to St. Louis or something and he's crushing home runs in their stadium, So that's just kind of a personal note. I don't want to, not that you can't, but me personally, I wouldn't want to have to face them within the division.
Yeah, and that's fair. That threat is definitely present because, yeah, we're going to see them more often than not. And to give a weapon that can in turn be used against me, definitely not ideal. That's definitely more chess than checkers right there, Donnie Baseball.
Yeah, you heard it here first, man.
Don't give up guys that can hurt you. Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, so we've covered actually quite a bit of ground here through these 5 questions. We've talked around most of them and expanded into even other areas that we hadn't quite planned on. So I think this has been extremely fruitful. It's been great having you on here with your knowledge, your expertise, and your guidance. So I want to thank you again, definitely wholeheartedly, for being here, taking the time, and for having the discussion here. So thank you very much for being here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, Baker.
All right, and so if anybody wanted to reach out or get in touch with you or see what you're up to, I know that you do more than just baseball content, but if anybody is looking for you, they can find you with the media handle The Last Waltz Media, and that is Waltz, W-A-L-T-S, The Last Waltz Media on YouTube and on Instagram. You do more than just baseball, like I said, but extremely knowledgeable, man, and you'd be open if anybody had baseball discussions or something they wanted to reach out, right?
Yeah, absolutely, especially these Pirate fans.
Yeah. All right, so if anybody has any takes, any responses to the discussions that we've had here, leave a comment on the video here as well, or if you can get in touch with him, like I said, over at The Last Waltz Media, YouTube and Instagram. Donnie Baseball, thank you so much for being here, my brother. Always good to talk to you, and happy to talk baseball, talk shop, and get a handle on these Pittsburgh Pirates.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how the rest of the season plays out.
All right, stay tuned, everybody, for more baseball content with the Pittsburgh Pirates in this franchise rebuild. This is Baker signing off. I'll catch you guys in the next episode. All right, everybody, I am back in the game live. We're tied up, top of the 8th, man in scoring position, and never mind, he's going to move to 3rd. So hopefully you've all been enjoying the discussion with Donnie Baseball. I loved it. I'm super happy with all the things that we covered, and I could only wish for just more time. If this is something that you guys liked and enjoyed and think brings value to this franchise as I do, then go ahead and let me know. If you can like the video or comment, that would be great. I'd love the feedback. This has been an absolutely bonkers game, as I'm sure you've noticed if you've been watching it, if you've made it here towards the end, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Up on the scoreboard, we have left 9 runners on base, and McCutcheon will bloop that into center field, and we'll send the runner here to take the lead in the top of the 8th. McCutcheon strikes again. Yeah, this game was unbelievable to play. It's just a back-and-forth slugfest, but in such a, like, brawl in the phone booth kind of down and dirty way. I felt like there was so much sloppy play on really both sides of the ball, but Miami in particular I felt was really bad, and we just could not capitalize to this point. We have just taken the lead in the final 2 innings of the game, but we have left 9 men on base. We have 11 hits, and they have committed 3 errors, most of those coming in very early in the game. So it has been a wild one, and again, I just hope that everybody's been enjoying it, because the discussion itself, I felt, really added a lot into the context of this franchise, bringing in that real-world knowledge from somebody who I really consider an expert in baseball in general, but definitely in the sense of having Pittsburgh Pirates knowledge. That's definitely an area where I lack. And so I really appreciate Donnie getting on here with me, talking baseball, and Gonzalez will bring that up into center field, and now we've got 2 men on with only 1 out and a 1-run lead as we seek to pad that going into the bottom of the 8th. It has been an up and down game for both teams, really. I felt like we have been lucky in some of these. Now, with all the base runners that we've left, I also feel like Miami has been lucky. And I was surprised in this game, both with how bad some of their fielding was, and also their starter was just really all over the place, very wild. And I didn't think that we had a bad outing from our starter, but it's just the relievers coming in, I think, is where the game started going a little more wild and out of control. And speaking of wild, that swing was just so terrible. We'll advance the runners, so they're both in scoring position with only 2 outs now. I say only, but they just need 1. But yeah, wild pitches all over. They will walk him. Okay, so they're going to put the bases loaded on purpose. O'Neal Cruz will go over there. And now, IKF. And let's see. I was thinking about pinch hitting here, and I'm looking at who could possibly take over for short, and I'm like, okay, maybe, but the clutch rating for Kiner Falefa is the highest that I've got out of anybody on the bench. And so if we're going to make anything happen, it needs to be him. And we'll fight off the sweeper there on the outer edge of the zone. And there it is, yeah, highlighted even now. The Marlins only left 2 on base, so they've been more efficient with their base runners. Wow, terrible. Let's try sending him. Go. 48 speed, can he get there? No! Oh, man. I was really hoping, because of all of the wild pitches in the dirt that have allowed us to advance our runners, I really was hoping that was going to be it, but it's not. So we blow a bases-loaded situation. Even more runners stranded on base now. And we're going to bring in a new reliever. I think this is Modzinski. I'm not positive, but he'll face 2, 3, and 4 in the bottom of the 8th. And Gonzalez trailing into right field, and he will get it. And we've got our first out in the bottom of the 8th. All right. Only a few more left to go, and then I get the notification Peguero is out of position. And so we are going to bring in Jared Triolo, and he'll play first base for the remainder of the game. I actually got to see Triolo play in a spring training game, which was really cool. It was Pirates versus Orioles, and Triolo was actually playing third. And wow, what a hit by Edwards. It goes deep into center field, and Cruz is underneath it. So Triolo was very impressive defensively at third base in that spring training game. And I thought, wow, this guy can really field the ball. This is going to be really interesting, thinking ahead to if I took them for the franchise, which ultimately, of course, as you can see, I did. So I wonder if Triolo is going to have a role. And that all depends, you know, any moves that we make and trades and call-ups and etc. I mean, there's so much work to do. Gonzalez is quick, but he can't get there. It'll go into center for Cruz, who will throw to second. He's trying to double, and he's safe. No, I don't believe it. Connor Norby with a little blooper just up into center field. I can't even say it right. Cruz with the throw, and it looks like we got the tag. Can they show the good angle here? Okay, maybe. I don't know. That's hard to tell, but wow. The live play right there looked like we had nailed him. Unfortunately, that's a runner on second base now with speed and 2 outs for Jonah Bride, and he will ground out to keep Brian Hayes at third. All right, crisis averted, and we enter the final inning of the game with a 1-run lead. Let's get it done as Miami brings in their closer, Calvin Fauché. I think that's how you say that. A 3.19 ERA over 53 innings pitched. Last year, he seemed to be pretty good. And I'm going to go ahead and get our closer ready to go. It's Dennis Santana. And I'm going to schedule him to close the game for the first time this year. All right, 2-3-5 due up for us this time. So Isaiah Kiner-Falefa will resume the at-bat that was interrupted on the passed ball attempt at home. So let's see if we can finish this off. So, to further the thought on this discussion that I just had in this episode with Donnie Baseball, really, really loved everything that he brought to the table and the level of analysis. And kind of, it was like a top-down view is my impression of it, because I was thinking about it in the time since we did the interview. And during the edit and playing game 2 here, it's been on my mind. And Kiner-Falefa lifts that to right field, and that is an easy first out. And so I'm thinking about all of that feedback that he gave me, and it really does line up for the most part with a lot of the thoughts that I had. There were a few surprises in there. Again, if there's anything in there that surprised you, and Brian Reynolds will surprise me with a solo shot in the upper deck, 416 feet. His first home run of the year. And Brian Reynolds was projected to have a monster of a season for Pittsburgh, if you remember from the last episode. And here he is powering one way into right field. And now a 2-run cushion. That feels a lot better going into the 9th with our closer, who as of yet has not been unveiled for us. I don't know whether or not he's good or bad to play with. So I'll take a 2-run lead over his single-run lead any day of the week. Good hold back from Bart. So anyways, I think that it's a very much like a high-level view of the Pirates organization, which is exactly what I was hoping for. I think we could talk all day about the nitty-gritty. We could talk about who's good, against lefties and righties, and who should, be in certain spots of the lineup. We could get down to the nitty-gritty and the little details like that, but that's not quite what I wanted. And so I think we ended up nailing exactly what I had hoped for in our discussion. And that was a top-down view of the Pirates organization, the weaknesses that we have, some of the players that we could possibly move, some that we could keep, look to develop, and then how we kind of get this train rolling. And then even a tentative kind of feel of, okay, well, what metrics do we measure success with? Like, what time frame are we looking for, etc. So, again, I will put it out in the universe here. If you guys enjoyed this discussion, if you thought this brought value, let me know. I would love the idea of bringing him back at certain kind of checkpoints throughout this franchise as we extend further and further through time. And I think that it would be great to have a resource that we could tap into to give us kind of an insight and a little bit of feedback as well over the things that have been happening in the franchise, the moves that we will ultimately end up making, and then as we start to draft and scout, and wow, what a hit by McCutchen, just too early on that. As we start to scout and develop players and draft them, I think it's going to be very exciting to pick up young guys that we can place the hopes of this franchise on. I mean, that's one of my favorite things, is building the new guys. And this Pirates roster, as I showed in my breakdown, is a mixed bag as far as age. And there's some guys that are getting up there. Even Donnie Baseball and I talked, where several of these guys are going to be aging into what should be their prime, but they're too far behind in development, or they're going to be reaching their prime as their ratings start to degrade because they've just started to age out. And so, guys like O'Neal Cruz could be a great example of that. We specifically talked about him. I think that he should be close to the best that he's going to be as a player here in the next year or two, but his ratings are not really matching with that. He needs about 4 years to develop or so, and by that time, regression will begin hitting. So, for now, we will see Dennis Santana make his closing debut. It looks like he played quite a bit last year. Not really in a closing or a save situation kind of a deal, but just a reliever with a lot of innings. So he chewed up a lot in 2024. And we'll see how much work he actually gets. And he will immediately give a line drive to right field in the gap to right center. McCutchen is going to throw that in. But that is a leadoff double for Jesus Sanchez. And that is a worrying start for Dennis Santana. My goodness. I don't want any drama to finish this game. We've got a 2-run lead. 7, 8, and 9 now due up with a runner on second base. So Santana's job is obviously don't lose this game. I'm not necessarily worried if we let 1 run in. We can still win there. But you absolutely in no way can give up 2 runs. And Triolo will play that grounder. Augustin Ramirez is out. Runner on third now. 1 out for Dane Myers, who is still looking for his first hit of the year. And he'll watch that slider down to the bottom of the zone. Good pitch by Santana. I like that location. It's going to be fun also, I think, getting to know these pitchers and pitching with them. And you can tell kind of what the tendencies are, where those things go. So, for instance, Santana, as I tried out 2 sinkers in a row, they seem to drop a lot further than what the projection was showing me. It didn't quite hit the bullseye. So it's going to be a learning curve, and McCutchen's going to run for that, and he will get there. 52 speed on the way to home, and Triolo's just going to throw it in late. All right, so Miami has brought it to within 1. Derek Hill, their number 9 hitter, up to the plate with 2 outs and a beautiful slider from Santana. We still got a very good chance to get out of here, and now we're up to the final strike against Hill. Here we go. Santana just needs 1 good pitch. Can he do it? And yes, he will. A slider played at second base, and the Pirates win. We have started this year off 2-0 against Miami. And that game was a lot closer than the first, and a lot more sloppy, I will say. I'm not sure really what happened specifically, like, that triggered this being a different feeling in the game, but I think the errors, the ton of left on base guys, we got a pretty good amount of walks as well. It was an all-around competitive game, but I didn't expect it to be, especially after game 1 was a lot further away than this. So anyways, we're getting here to the end of the episode, but I'm so excited to start it off 2-0 versus Miami. That will seal the series. We've scored 7 in both games, and that is a pretty good way on paper to start this franchise. We lead the division now as the Reds are only 1-0 behind us. Cardinals and Brewers have lost their first games, and the Cubs all the way down at 1-3 at the bottom of the division. The Chicago Cabooses right now. And that'll do it for this episode. I can't wait to get further into this franchise. We will start moving along at a quicker pace here shortly. Thank you, everyone, for joining me, and I'll see you next time.